Well, we thought we were settling in just for a nice preseason game to kind of just get through the night. But unfortunately, as the second half resumed, we looked at the starting lineup and Paul George was not there. Caleb Martin was in it. And we just simply thought, hey, he's getting the rest of the night off. Well, some of us did. And unfortunately, the Sixers later on revealing through Gina Mizell from the Inquirer that Paul George has suffered a left knee hyperextension and would not return for the rest of the game. And that is the story of the game as the Sixers pick up their second preseason win through 4 games. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers post-game show here on the PHLY Sixers, of course, the network. And it is presented by Rothman Orthopedics and Bet365 here during the post-game show alongside Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck, I'm Devon Givens, Brianna producing, all of you on the chat. And we have a lot to get to with this latest news, Derek, as we sit here watching the game and we're just seeing things. They're running up and down the court, not a lot of shots falling for either team. And then you mentioned that he was not in for the final few minutes of the second quarter. Kyle says, hey, Caleb Martin is starting the third, and we realized that Paul George was the one that he was in for, and we later get the left knee hyperextension.
Yeah. Look, I think sometimes we can lose perspective because it seems like every minor thing turns into a major thing, in part because every hyperextension we deal with feels like it's coming from Joel Embiid and the 7 foot, 280 pound frame that knee has to carry. But not every hyperextension is a big deal. Sometimes it can be. A lot of times it's not. We just don't know. And I'm sure Nick Nurse will talk to the media at some point while we're on the air. I'm sure he will say absolutely nothing about the injury, in part because he was busy coaching the game, in part because they really never give any meaningful injury updates in the post-game press conferences. So I don't love it. I prefer it when the stars do not hyperextend their knee.
Prefer when nobody gets hurt in general,
correct,
not just the stars.
But just wait, find out before you flip out. And that's, I guess, my one thing.
Yeah, I think the reason that this one stings is, one, you're already dealing with Joel's not playing in the preseason and all the pretext of he's going to skip back-to-backs. It's all about the playoffs. And Paul George is, in some ways, in many ways, in fact, part of that cover that will allow you to carry out that strategy. And one of the concerns you have when you sign a 34-year-old player to a major contract is, well, is he going to hold up health-wise? And Paul George specifically, will he hold up health-wise, given that last year was the first year in 5 seasons that he was able to play more than 60 games? So opening the season with a question mark for Paul, even if it is and ends up being a small question mark, still stings a little bit. And frankly, it stings because I don't think anybody played particularly well tonight. You could look at, Tyrese Maxey was like 5 for 18, didn't shoot the ball well, and plenty of other guys did not play all that well. And they still coasted to a pretty comfortable win over the Hawks in spite of that. And it was not like we got 24 minutes of garbage time, right? It was around 25 to 30 minutes of all the regulars playing. And this looks like a capable, competent two-way team that can weather some tough stretches on offense. I think the switchable wings that they got in the offseason, you're already starting to see that pay some dividends on the defensive end. So I think if there's, doom and gloom happening, whether it's from me, whether it's from the people in the chat, whoever it might be, it's because it always feels like there can never just be like, this was like just a nice positive thing, and we don't have to worry about something else that comes attached to it. And so I 100% get that feeling coming from the fan base right now.
Like we said at the top, you just want to settle in for a preseason game, see how they play together. No Joel Embiid, but you have the rest of the players out there that we all were excited to look at and trying to evaluate together for the first time on television since Paul George did not play in the first televised game. And then we get that. So you understand, because of the history, because of where things are, because of all the conversation that we had during our pregame show talking about Joel Embiid, knowing that he was not going to play any preseason games because of his knee management. And now you get the end of the game during the postgame where we have to now talk about and wonder and wait, and everyone speculates of what's going to happen now with your prize free agent pickup from the offseason. Wasn't a great game. Some good things to kind of pick at and say, oh, that's cool when we get to game number 5 of the regular season. But we also wanted to see him come out of the locker room, start the third quarter, play about 6 minutes, and sit down for the rest of the night. Unfortunately, we get that news a little bit later on. So that's the tough part, just because, as you put out there in our Twitter account at PHLY_Sixers, once again, there for everybody's feeling, the sighing that we see there in the chat, the can't have nice things. Can I just see a full Embiid season for the postseason so we can get to that? And here we are. So how important is the preseason? It's important. But that's where people start to draw the line of, yeah, my city is kind of messed up, so let's not play my guys in the preseason. Let's just play them in the regular season for things like this. We're getting a lot of Rothman call out in here. By the way, our post-game show presented by Rothman Orthopedics. Let's talk about them a little bit later, but if PG needs somewhere to go, I got some folks for him for this hyperextended knee.
Yeah, and part of the problem is a hyperextended knee isn't actually like it's not something that happened. Like, it's not a description of the injury. It's just a description
it's not a
of
diagnosis.
the event which might have caused an injury. So we really have no information, and people can be like, "Well, it's the exact same thing that happened a couple of years ago that ended the season." No, it's not. It's just the way that the knee moved is not correct. It hyperextended.
Yeah,
and now we wait to see whether there was any damage to it. That damage is the injury. The hyperextension is not. So we wait.
So we do have some people who are asking what happened. So I will send super producer Bree a clip of what happened so that people can see and we can kind of visualize that. Obviously, if anyone doesn't want to look, it's not like it's especially gruesome or anything.
And that's where I was going. DH3 and others have asked again what happened to Paul George. We'll get the clip for you so you can see it. Hyperextension, and with the hyperextension, just going back on the defense and trying to set himself up and for stop there, if you will, to make sure things were good. And the knee just buckled a little bit and then hyperextended. So when we get a chance, we'll show you as the show goes along. But it was just a typical play, and it can happen anytime. He could have been running up and down the floor on offense, coming back on defense, whatever. It was a non-contact thing where he hyperextended. And again, it wasn't as if someone ran into him and he was too old, so he buckled his knee because he was too old. It was just something that happened in the general flow of play. It's unfortunate because when you do watch it and you see you think about his injury in the past, you think about the injuries that anybody can pick up at any moment, you do start to think and you start to worry about why, as Jay said again, why can't we just not have nice things here? And so many other people saying the things that they want. And here is the clip here on the screen as he just goes back, little contact, but he goes back by himself to just cut off the drive there. I think it was Jalen Johnson, but cuts off the drive. And as he steps back and his left leg is going back, then it hyperextends a little bit and it looks.
So I will say, and I
don't know, by the way, what happened. I don't remember him running up the court thereafter.
He was out within the next 30 seconds. Derek went back and checked it while we were watching the game. So I will say, for people who have not looked at hyperextensions before, had to deal with them, Paul George has had hyperextensions before. One noteworthy one a couple years back with LA was a lot worse than this one, where it actually bent backward, and that actually caused him to miss some serious time. So, amateur non-medical analysis, we'll have to call in our friends at Rothman to give the real analysis of this type of injury, would be that this is on the milder side, and that, maybe he misses the rest of the week and they take it easy with him leading into the regular season. Maybe he could even miss the opener, but that would be the hope, right? Is that it's like a 6 to 10 days type of thing, and then you just move on.
I think what you can feel really confident about is you will not see Paul George in another preseason game, which I'm okay with. I have no problem with that part.
I mean, I'm okay with it in the sense that it's the right thing to do, not that I want to watch more games without Joel Embiid and Paul George at the same time.
Outside of that, like I said, we just don't know. It's not the real key is going to come down to what kind of structural damage, if any, happened because of that hyperextension, and we just don't know. It could be anything from he misses the rest of the preseason to we don't need to get into that. I would say I would agree with Kyle based on absolutely no medical training in my life other than covering this team for 15 years, which surprisingly you end up reading more than
a lot of practice.
But with no actual education, it didn't look serious. It didn't look on the serious end of that spectrum, but we just don't know.
Yeah, so also just to go off of with the days and maybe missing the season opener, it's 9 days until the season opener. So that's the 9 days there for that. He won't play in the 2 games that Kyle is talking about on Wednesday and Friday. We're sure of that for the for the preseason 2 final preseason games. And if he has 9 days of rest, so if it is a timeline of, let's say, maybe 2 weeks, he wouldn't miss much time at all. He'll probably miss, if we're just guessing, he would probably miss the first week of the season. And then what's that, 2-3 games that he would miss on that Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. And who knows? He might be ready for the season opener. So it didn't look bad. Non-trained eye. We're not doctors, and they do have Twitter doctors that, like sports doctors, that give diagnosis. One of them, I can't remember his name,
In street clothes.
One of them did say that maybe the season opener is in jeopardy, but that's where he stopped as far as left knee hyperextension before Gina dropped the information from the Sixers. Did have that. But at this point, everyone will be speculating of how much time he would miss depending on the severity of the hyperextension.
So, well, we shall see. And there are people saying, look at the other angle, it looks worse. And I would agree it looks worse there is a behind Paul George angle from the baseline. Yeah, I will tell you, go find the one from his Clippers days. If you actually want to watch, it was worse than this by a good measure. But it's all subjective. So we will see what happens. We can't offer anything. There is no new information that we can offer right now. So the rest of the show will probably just be
speculation. How
was the rest of that preseason game? How'd everybody else look?
Yeah. So can we just talk about him before the injury happened? I mean, as far as his play went, he didn't help us on the Bet365. He had 9 points instead of the 15 that I projected out.
Well, as everyone knows, the most important thing is gambling and not. Yeah, I'm kidding, just to make sure, just so everyone knows, his health is paramount first and foremost before anything else.
I do prefer when Devon is right, though.
Thank you. But in the 12 minutes, he was 3 for 5. He had 1 3-pointer, and they were struggling to get anything going offensively. The lid was on the basket for both teams. Hawks got out to a big 11-3 early lead. Sixers had to call a timeout. But you saw some things that, of course, you like. He was the one who put that first 3 points on the board for the Sixers when they were struggling with the 3-pointer from the left wing. You saw some of the mid-range stuff that you like to see from him. There was a shot along the baseline. I think it was against Jalen Johnson. He had his back to the basket. I was sitting on the couch. Kyle and Derek were behind me at the desk, and I could hear Kyle say, shoot
doing
that
serious
over him.
Work while you're down there on the couch, sir.
That's right. Shoot that over him. So, it was a good, normal Paul George fadeaway jump shot along the baseline over a lengthy athletic wing player in Jalen Johnson. He did some nice things. I mean, just like anybody else, he had some bad moments. He had 2 turnovers where you were wondering, what the heck is going on with this team here? Why are they turning the ball over the way that they were? 4 or 5 turnovers in the first 3 minutes of action. But overall, I mean, the 2 boards, 1 assist, 1 steal for Paul George. He had 2 personal fouls in the 12 minutes. He looked all right. The shot just wasn't falling for a lot of people, even though he did shoot 3 for 5.
Yeah. No, I mean, he that jump shot that he's able to get off pretty much whenever he wants. He had a couple of real nice crossovers to set up the jumper. He's just very fluid, very skilled, knows how to leverage that shot to get in the paint, even though he doesn't have the burst that he had earlier in his career. He's an elite shooter, and he leverages that, and he's going to be a good player for them as long as what happened at 8:26 in the second quarter isn't serious.
Yeah, and if he didn't have the 15 points that Devon was banking on coming into the game,
it's all right, Paul.
It was because, as he has talked about throughout the preseason so far, he was not really in give me the ball, force it, you're playing through me type of mode, right? And I do think he's in the feeling out process with these guys. Like, where can I get my touches? When can I really put my imprint on this game? And by and large, he let Maxey control a lot of the game early, and that led to, unfortunately, a lot of Andre Drummond dribble moves and Kelly Oubre contested jumpers and turnovers. And I would have probably liked Paul to be a little more assertive during his time, but that's the kind of player he is, right? He fades in and out of games. Sometimes that's to his and the team's detriment. Other times it's good, right? You need guys who are comfortable. Like, I'm a weapon just by being on a spot on the floor to take attention away from a Tyrese in the middle of the floor, from a Joel Embiid at the elbow, or when he was in LA, taking it away from Kawhi Leonard on the other side of the floor, whatever it might be. And so I think you've seen both sides of Paul George already in this preseason. Against Minnesota, they start out slow, and he starts out slow, and then he just catches fire and starts hitting pull-up threes and controlling the offense and bringing the ball up and whatnot. So you've already gotten in a very small sample, obviously, both sides of the coin with him, where he can take over games. He can be the best player on the team for stretches, but then he's going to relocate. He's going to be setting screens. He's going to be doing dirty work, I thought he had a couple nice plays on defense tonight where he's just, getting hands on balls on drivers, where he's stunting on other guys' who are driving toward the basket. And I think that's one of the great things I'm excited for with this team, is that not only he can do that, but Caleb Martin can do that. Kelly Oubre can do that, where it's, if somebody's driving through Paul George, around Paul George, Caleb Martin can just move across the lane, poke a ball loose. Tyrese Maxey might be able to smack a ball coming from the other way. And I think that's all these guys are going to make each other better defenders because they have more help. Guys will just pop up in the right places more often. Even if they're not in the right place, they have the physical tools and the smarts in most cases to make a play on the ball and turn the other team over, run the other way.
Gina Mizell, just with one quote so far from the head coach of the Sixers, Nick Nurse, saying, quote, certainly trying to work him into things. This is based on the timing of Paul George's injury. Certainly trying to work him into things, and he wants to work into things too. So this doesn't give him a chance to do that. Hopefully it'll be okay. So he's back with us right away, end quote. So just pretty generic, and as we know, doesn't have much information except for what the Sixers put out. So Nick Nurse just keeping it simple, keeping it basic on what he does know and what the actual injury is and how they go forward.
And going back to Kyle's point about the size of the wings and their ability to make up ground, I really cannot wait to see them when they're not just trying to cover up for, Drummond and Yabu inside, but when they have an anchor like Embiid, because they have so much that they now can do, so much flexibility, so much diversity, so much ability to cause a little bit of chaos and still be able to recover back and challenge shooters. This is a luxury the Sixers really haven't had. And maybe at various points during the prior point guards era, I'm trying to keep Winona, stay on Winona's good side.
Keep me off of your...
But they just haven't had this kind of length and mobility on the perimeter, and it's really something that I think is going to help Joel Embiid, and I think something that Nick Nurse has always utilized very effectively during his Toronto days.
And I immediately, as Kyle was talking about their wing length and how they're able to disrupt things, starting with Paul George, and I immediately thought about a play that Kelly Oubre did have, where he just poked the ball away maybe a few feet away from the three-point line, busting up their action and not allowing them to get set because he threw some things off there just simply by tipping the basketball away. So you'll see a lot of that. Caleb Martin had one, as Kyle mentioned also. And so with that activity, them being able to do that. And we also talked about how Tyrese Maxey, as a result of being out there with, let's say, 4 good defensive players, when we're adding Kelly Oubre to that mix because we saw what he did a season ago. You also saw Tyrese Maxey, because he wasn't shooting that well, wasn't getting the points that we are accustomed to seeing so far through the preseason even, cut a couple of things off on the baseline. I thought he competed on the defensive end where this is what he's talked about improving, about being better. Nick Nurse spoke about this, and he does not want to be that weak link. So you saw some of that competing tonight with that group out there with Andre Drummond behind them, where Eric Gordon was also out there. You would probably say it just because of the stage that he's in and at this age that he's probably the weak link. But Tyrese Maxey, I thought, competed defensively tonight for the 76ers, something that they can build off of. Maybe we'll see a lot more of that, some more positive things defensively from Tyrese Maxey, where they're just not hunting him down and finding him on the defensive end and trying to take advantage of him. They will do that because he's still the smallest guy out there, but he will compete. He will stick his nose in there and not just give up easy buckets. for the Sixers. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't want to be overly simplistic with the defensive stuff. The Hawks shot 37% from the field tonight, not from three, where they were 13 of 44, which is a big part of it, right? But to hold a team with, and it's not like they're an offensive juggernaut, right? But Trey's a really high-level offensive player. They have some decent guys on the team, and yes, they probably missed some open shots they'd like to have back. But they held an NBA team to 37% shooting, and that was giving up quite a few, dunks and some open stuff at the rim. So for Clint Capella to get his normal share of the easy ones, the duck-ins, the lobs, and Larry Nance to get a few of those and a few drives to the basket, for basically everything else to be, you cut the water off, like they couldn't score. I think that's a great sign, and it shows the impact that even without a real impact defender at the rim, even with going to Yabusele, a smaller guy at the 5 behind Drummond, you had a really good defensive night.
Yeah. And for as much as, the Hawks are going to struggle this year, like whenever Trey has been on the floor, that's a top 5 offense, more or less. It's just with that injury, I think a lot of people are really, really stressed.
All right.
I think we had a solution for that stress.
Yeah, I'll tell you about it in just a few seconds.
Yes, let's do that. After we do that, we'll come back and we'll talk about much more from this game right here on the PHLY Sixers Podcast.
Well, guys, it's that time again. It's time for the Sixers to torture you in 15 different ways, several times a week across 5 to 8 months. We don't know how long it's going to go for. But maybe we do, and we don't want to admit it just yet. No matter how stressed you are, no matter what the severity of any injury is, you can always choose chill. And once you choose chill, you can reach for an ice-cold Coors Light, which I might do the second this ad read is over. I might go try to find one. Devon's looking at an empty box on the floor, by the way.
Actually, it's not empty.
As if I'm going to pull some warm cans out of there right now.
He has standards, Devon.
You
Come
will
on.
know when you get an ice-cold Coors Light because the mountains turn blue on the bottles and cans as they hit that perfect temperature. Guys, I'm sure there were a few of you tonight who, once you learned about the Paul George news, came here to this show, number one, but number two, we're sitting in your house like, damn it, I can't believe this is happening again. Why us? Why me? Why Paul? Why now? Look, you just got to get through the end of today. We wake up tomorrow. It's a new day. It's a better day when you can choose chill and get mountain cold refreshment no matter where you are. Get a cold layered, cold filtered, cold packaged beer with a smooth finish. When you choose to rise above it all, choose chill, choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
We also want to tell you about Rite Aid. Look, there's a lot of stuff coming up, whether that's family events like Halloween or Thanksgiving or big games that you won't want to miss. In order to do that, get a flu shot at Rite Aid. And while you're at the pharmacy, get the latest COVID-19 vaccine as well and stay up to date on all the others. You can even ask your pharmacist for a vaccine review or for recommendations. The CDC recommends getting a flu shot every year. A person's immune protection from vaccinations declines over time. Help protect yourself against the flu by getting your annual flu shot at Rite Aid today. And according to the CDC, flu vaccination may reduce a child's risk of severe life-threatening influenza by 75%. Flu viruses are constantly changing, so get your annual flu shot formulated to help protect you against this year's expected flu strains. And flu vaccines do not protect against COVID-19, so get the COVID-19 vaccination as well to prevent, and the COVID-19 vaccinations do not prevent the flu. So getting both is key. And while at the pharmacy, stock up on cough, cold, flu, and allergy essentials. Rite Aid has what you need to get you through the season. Just walk into your local Rite Aid or schedule at riteaid.com. State, age, and health restrictions apply. Ask your Rite Aid pharmacist for details.
Hey, Aaron says, I have risen above it all. Chill has been chosen. That's right, Aaron. Just choosing. It's the preseason, right? You're getting through it. It's all good. It'll be back soon. And also, we did have lost it really quickly because a lot of chats coming in. X-Man, PG. He can take his time to get healthy. Embiid and Maxey with the new supporting cast is still a top 3 seed in the East. Well, the only problem, X, is we got to wait and see when Joel is going to play because we are unclear of when he is actually going to start. Maybe it's the season opener, maybe it's not. But we also have to wait and find out when that is. Let's go to, we do have some super chats also. We want to get those in because they are pertinent to the conversation right now. Corey says, Panic City, population, us.
We never left, Corey. We've always been here. Choose chill, buddy.
Even when you sign him, you mention that he's 34. So you sign him for 4 years, 200 plus million. Yeah, but he's 34. So yeah, population.
There was
us.
always the but. So,
and Bernard McCoy jumps in. Wow. Can't get a break, man. Just cannot get a break. I hope Maxey starts playing with more pace because it's a scary, same old thing with the speed burst that he has. Hope PG 8 is okay. Prayers.
Okay, can I use that to transition to a new topic so it's not all doom and gloom from Bernard there?
No, we have to stay miserable.
One of the things I actually really did like in that game from Maxey, and I did not like that game overall from him, was the pace setting and playing with speed. And that is not just Tyrese Maxey gets the ball and dribbles coast to coast and tries to score, right? It's a lot of, hey, I can find the hit-ahead pass and see whether it's Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, Kyle Lowry, whoever it might be, find that guy further up the floor so we can get into our offense, get an easy look at the basket before the other team is set. Sometimes that is going to be Tyrese Maxey dribbling the ball up the floor, trying to go coast to coast, or at least, free throw line to the opposing rim, whatever it might be. But I think he's done so far a good job in this preseason of setting that standard that I think Nick Nurse has preached in preseason and training camp, which is we want to play faster. I want Tyrese to play faster. And that will look different depending on time, score, situation, whatever it might be. But he needs to play with purpose at all times, and especially when he is option numero uno, and certainly Paul George goes down, Joel Embiid's already out. He is the undisputed number one guy on the team. And so he obviously did not have a good night shooting or scoring, but I thought he did a very good job of trying to keep them like, let's pick it up, fellas. Like, we have to get used to, especially on the nights that Joel's not going to play, you're going to have to win with transition a lot of times, right? You're not going to be a half-court juggernaut without one of the best players in the league there to throw to as your safety valve, without that guy being a pick-and-roll, pick-and-pop partner with Tyrese. And so, yeah, it's going to lead to some games where maybe he rushes things, maybe he takes a shot early in the clock that he'd like back, and they should do something else with it. But I think if I was trying to take a positive from Tyrese's performance, it would be that. And I did think the playmaking was okay, too. He had a turnover or two that were pretty terrible. But in terms of setting the table, managing the game, getting guys involved, I thought he did a pretty good job of that tonight as well.
Devon, do you have a favorite play from Maxey tonight?
Oh, I wonder. I can't guess.
Yes, I do. It was in the, it was in the nice part of the quarter there where he goes off a screen and finds Andre Drummond right there in front. Perfectly timed lob in the second quarter where he just lays it right in front of the rim for his big man to catch it easily, doesn't have to do anything else, and just flush it home. And oftentimes we talk about, as a point guard, you just have to make the simple play. And the simple play right there was the lob. And the lob was the overhead pass right there in front of the rim for Andre Drummond. So you'd like to see that because oftentimes with that speed and with that angle and that burst that he does have, he can get that shot off a lot of times, whether it's the floater, the runner, or even something off the glass. But for this, you also want to make sure you reward. And it's an easier finish there at the basket, and that is that toss-up to your big man right there in front of the rim for the dunk. So, yes, right on cue, the moment of the night, Tyrese Maxey moment of the night is that lob to Andre Drummond for that easy finish.
And it's just, if you can make Andre a threat there, like there's only so much a defense can take away. When you've got a guy with the speed and the shot of Maxey, there's only so much. And when you have a big man rolling to the rim like that, you have a guy on the strong side corner that can shoot and a guy on the weak side corner on the shoot, something is going to be there. And Tyrese being able to make that pass opens up the other three options. And eventually he's going to get to the point where he's going to have the defense on a string and just be able to manipulate that and get something every time down the floor. Making those passes, making those reads, seeing what's there, having just a center who is an option to throw a lob to, because a lot of times the Sixers haven't necessarily had that. I do think it might not be as pro lob as Devon, because that seems like that is his pet thing.
I don't think it's possible to be as pro lob as
But
Devon
I do think having the threat of that is going to open things up. And even if it just causes a little bit of indecision in a big man, deciding whether he's going to rotate over and help onto Tyrese, that will make those layups easier and those shots easier. So I do agree with it's big.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that, and the only reason I make a big deal about it is just he's a small guard. And as a guard that's going to have the ball in his hands, dunks are cool. If I could do those, I would do those a lot. But it's because he wasn't good at them. From the time that we have seen him for the 4 years in the Sixers uniform, whenever we've seen him throw lob attempts, they weren't very close to the rim to finish. Now, with all due respect, he hasn't had a lot of athletes to really throw them to outside of Joel Embiid as a big man to put that up, but he's not a lob finisher. Matisse Thybulle, maybe Jalen McDaniels in the past. Only a couple of guys that really
the
stand
PJ
out.
Tucker shade.
Well, in his younger years.
We ought to throw you off the set for that one.
Maybe. Other than that, and, Tobias from time to time, you could throw a lob to, just simple.
Very specialized situations.
Except he would then catch it, come down with it, jab step, pump fake, and then it's no longer a lob.
I wasn't even going. I shouldn't even brought up his
it.
name. My bad. I didn't mean to bring up his name.
Winona's going to shame the both of you.
And Tanya's probably watching. She's going to destroy us for that too. And that's Derek, not us.
You brought him up first.
It was in a positive. I could throw him a lob and he can finish it. But that's it. It's just a simple play for a point guard that I didn't see a lot of from Tyrese Maxey in his 4 years in the Sixers uniform. Good to see something like that early in the preseason that could translate later, especially having a player that he feels comfortable throwing that to. It could also be Caleb Martin, KJ Martin. I forgot to mention him from last season and even now. So we'll see. We'll see how all of that goes for Maxey. But yes, small thing. I pick at it a lot. We make fun of it, but it's not a nothing thing as the season goes along for a pass that could be available. Some other positives that we can probably talk about, and we will. We'll get to that on the other side when we get back here on the PHLY Sixers Podcast. And we have to talk about two of our presenting sponsors, but we'll separate them. Bet365, one of them, did not hit on our bets from earlier in the game. My apologies. It's the preseason.
The gambling Givens era is over before it started.
We all have the preseason. We hit on the Ricochet. We hit on the what was that? Trae Young three-pointer. We missed on Maxey, although he did get a lot of attempts up. 2 for 9 from 3. Trae Young hit his. Unfortunately, Paul George did not finish the game to hit his 15 points. But if you want to do that when we get the season started and you want to make these picks with me on the show, pregame, whenever you want, Bet365 is the place to go. Never ordinary. 90 million users worldwide. Live stream 780,000 events each year from NBA, NFL, NHL, and MLB. And you had all of those games, all of those leagues in action tonight. So you could have had a field day and some fun on Bet365. If you are not already signed up, here's what you do. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you do sign up and bet just $5. Use code PHLY365 to sign up. Deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $200 in those bonus bets. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. I'll get those right when the season starts. Don't you worry. We'll have those correct by next week. Also, when you're looking to sign up, you got to make sure for those Monday night games, you get those in. Like tonight, maybe some MLB playoffs, you get those as well. It's right there for you. So you must be 21. As you download the Bet365 app, use code PHLY365, and you sign up to get the $200 in bonus bets. When you bet that $5, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
Dying to see the segue on this one.
I'm going to stay positive. When he gets the MRI from Rothman Orthopedics, it's going to be no damage. All right, let's just stay positive. But he did decide to go to Rothman Orthopedics because when you do have a situation like this and you want to hurry and make sure that you're looked at quickly and efficiently and making sure you get the right results. Right now, their mission, high quality, compassionate, and affordable care rooted in research leading to new treatments and better outcomes. And you can also, when you're dealing with this and you have a body part that needs to be checked out, like the knee, right? You want to get back to crossover defense, draining those jump shots? Well, Rothman Orthopedics, they specialize in you. You get back out there, proudly serving dozens of communities across Pennsylvania and New Jersey with 30-plus convenient offices, urgent cares, and walk-in centers. Year over year, Rothman consistently performs among the highest volume of hip, knee, shoulder, and ankle replacements in the country with over 60,000. Make sure you check them out from diagnosis to discharge. They provide their patients with every service and procedure necessary, such as x-rays, orthotics, bracing, MRIs. It's all laying out perfectly right here for our show topic, physical therapy and more. We hope it's not as serious, but just simply to be checked out like a Sixers player. You got to go to Rothman. Rothman Orthopedics specialize in orthopedics and you. Visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make an appointment today.
We were on the same wavelength.
Exactly.
We saw the same tweet, and Derek actually retweeted it. So since you retweeted it, how about you take the floor here with the...
So Gina Mizell of the Philadelphia Inquirer said that she chatted with Paul George in the locker room. He had a sleeve on the knee, but was walking and said that he is not too concerned about the prognosis. He said he will get treatment on it tonight and proceed from there. That was, again, from Gina Mizell.
So the big headline there is in quotes, direct quotes from Paul George, not too concerned about the prognosis. That is the most important thing right now, although, there have been plenty of guys who had serious injuries that didn't know it. So
hush. We're being positive right now.
We are
Kyle.
being positive. It's a good thing to hear. It's better than hearing, well, boy, my knee feels like crap. So
yeah, I mean, really, if his knee was bad, you probably wouldn't even hear from him. He would be hidden away somewhere, away from the media.
They would have whisked him away on a separate flight and said, well, sorry, Paul's not talking tonight.
Well, and the other good thing is, because like you just said, sorry, Paul's not talking tonight, he talked. He didn't hide from me. He just simply talked to Gina and said, hey, I'm okay. I'm not too worried about it. Having the sleeve on it, precautionary. And, many of you have played. You guys know when you have some sort of injury like that and your ankle or your elbow or your knee, your knee is burning.
Well, I want to really knock on wood here. I've actually never had a ligament or muscle injury. Mine have all been broken bones.
Okay.
And I have plenty of those, but never a ligament.
No, I tore an ACL.
Yeah, I have both. Me and my guy
I don't know why we're fist bumping on that one.
Because we made it back.
If it makes you feel any better, I actually had such a big growth spurt, or such a quick growth spurt when I was in either 7th or 8th grade, that my bones and muscles didn't grow at the same speed. You guys want to hear about some fun medical stuff? My Achilles tendon was pulled very tight to the point you could see it running up my leg. That was how out of whack my body was. So I had to sit out of stuff for a while, but nothing tore. So that's,
I did not
it's the George W. Bush mission accomplished banner in the background.
I did not have that growth spurt problem with the height. Just did not have that problem.
Yeah, and obviously knocking on like 800 pieces of wood. I know at some point in my life I will suffer a real muscle injury, but breaking 1 foot 3 different times was my version of that.
Yeah. So good news. Glad he was able to speak and at least address it. Yeah. And we hope that
I did not have that.
The MRI and everything else comes through pretty good for Paul George, where there's not much concern. We talked about the good of Tyrese Maxey, and there was not a lot of good, but just some at least to discuss. We talked about the good of Paul George while he was out there. Even better news to get that from Gina for right now.
Yes.
And we'll see what happens a little bit more once they get back to Philadelphia. They do play on Wednesday against the Brooklyn Nets. Some of the other things that you maybe did not like. We'll get to the other good because he's going to be our player of the game.
Just full negative mode on this show.
Well, we have a player of the game, and we'll get to him shortly. But even though they won 104-89, they came back, and that's the good thing. What did you see from Eric Gordon as a starter, as a guy who is a veteran and playing with the Wings, and Tyrese Maxey?
I mean, just shot the ball fine, 50% from the field, 50% from 3 on low volume.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. He was pretty anonymous otherwise, right? Like, I get it. And we were doing some back padding, maybe me a little more than I allowed Derek to before the show, that he was going to get opportunities. Didn't really see anything.
Muscle patting yourself on the back.
Maybe. Didn't see anything super inspiring out of him. I think, frankly, if there was a a worst player of the game award, I think it'd probably go to Kelly. I thought he had a disaster of a game tonight. 1 of 8 from 3 speaks for itself. Yeah. But beyond that, the decision making was just
it's
putrid.
Not beyond that. It's part of that.
They are connected. Yeah, he was taking bad contested threes, had a bad early turnover. There were times where he's just running into traffic with no real plan. Even on a couple plays in the third quarter where he turned it around a little bit.
He was much better.
He got fouled. There were opportunities where he got fouled, but right before that, there's an opening to swing the ball, pass it to an open shooter that he just straight up missed or didn't want to make, one or the other. Could be both. And it was one of those games that crystallized for me, for both him and Andre Drummond to a lesser extent, when Joel is out and there is a power vacuum that has to be filled. Well, maybe it doesn't have to be filled. I'm a little concerned that Kelly and Andre and some of these other guys are going to say, it's my turn to be the number 3 option on this team. And that's always kind of the challenge, right? Is when Kelly is, when he's locked in, whether that means he's, having a good shooting night or he's just in the right role, it's taking the right amount of shots, is cutting off ball, doing the things that we talked about loving last season. That's all well and good. But once he has the chance to be like, okay, it's Kelly Oubre time, that's when things start to go awry. So something to monitor. Certainly one game in the preseason, not going to overwrite everything he did last year, but something to keep an eye on at the very least.
No, but he played a decent amount of bozo basketball today. And that was sort of that was a report on Kelly coming into the Sixers. That's in part, I bring it up all the time. Open catch and shoot threes, 37% the last couple of years. When he has a contested three, it drops to like 25%. And a lot of those attempts early on in the game, he was taking contested threes early on in the shot clock. And then the ball got swung around to him. He got an open one off the catch. It went in. The only 3 that went in. But still, he has so much of his inefficiency and his inadequacy comes down to decision-making. And today was a day where it seemed like every decision he made was just wrong. It was aggressive in ways it shouldn't be aggressive. I never want to see Kelly take a contested three-pointer, almost ever, especially not one with 15-plus seconds left on the shot clock. It is preseason. It is preseason where you're playing a large majority of the game without your 2 best players. But I would like to see him get in regular season habits, and that was not it.
The one thing about the Eric Gordon piece is with the Eric Gordon thing, that'll change and look so different when Joel Embiid is out there on the floor. With Drummond, there was a play where Tyrese Maxey had a pick and roll with Andre Drummond, and it was in the middle of the floor. He dumped it off, normal bounce pass like he does to Embiid to Drummond on the right side. It wasn't 15 feet away. It was about 8 or 9 feet away. Normally, Joel Embiid is pulling up for that jump shot or making a second move right there, counter move quickly. Andre Drummond had to gather it. He wasn't going to shoot it. If anything, in the past, we've seen him with the push shot. It was something totally different. So everything as we know, is not the same when Joel Embiid is on the floor. So when Eric Gordon is out there, those shots might be a little bit different for him. Putting the ball on the floor in the closeout after making a few, that'll all change with Embiid out there on the floor. He is going to play some minutes with Andre Drummond, of course, as a backup. But if he's out there and he gets it going and the game is already in a certain pace in a certain way, they are leading by 8 points because Embiid and the rest of those guys got things started. Things again, the shots are different. The look is different. The other team is trying to do something differently because they're trailing in that situation. Eric Gordon was out there when the starters, as a part of the starting group, when they were down. So guys are trying to force things up, like Kelly Oubre. Maxey's looking to get going. Eric Gordon's in that starting lineup, so he's trying to get some things to happen also. And you are also playing with a guy who is not scoring by himself as a 5, where he's heavily relying on those offensive rebounds or for you to make a play for him. Those things will look different. So he was not good tonight. Was not good. It was good to see him knock down those shots because that's what he's here to do. And we saw the 35 feet away from the basket.
Yeah.
This guy can still pull up from that distance. That's good. It'll fall, I think, a lot differently when the big fella's there.
Circling back on something you said with Drummond, one reason I would give him more of a pass for, as Derek coined it, bozo basketball tonight is that it felt like he was put in situations where he had to do something sort of silly, right? Like, Derek, you roll your eyes over there. But Andre Drummond catching a short roll at the 3-point, like near the 3-point line, is not his game.
Oh,
and
sure,
putting him in that position where it's like he has the runway in front of him is like, well, what do you expect him to do, right? Andre Drummond as a passer is good when he's in the post and it's guys cutting off him or he's finding shooters, things like that. When you're asking Andre Drummond to be a decision maker from 20 feet out, that's not a good position for
KYP.
Andre Drummond to be in. Yeah, that's so. And some of that is Nick Nurse starts every season and says, I want to see what guys can do. Like this is their scouting report coming in, and that's all well and good, but I'm going to let everybody shoot. I'm going to let everybody do everything to some extent. And then a couple months into the year, let's say Christmas, that's when he tends to be like, hey, you, bozo, you're not shooting anymore. Hey, you're not doing this anymore. And so they're going to have to live through some growing pains where it won't always be their fault. I actually think there was more of that with Andre tonight. Kelly's another story. I thought Kelly was just, he's an example of it. It's self-inflicted wounds versus maybe he's just in a position that he shouldn't be in with Andre.
No, Andre had a possession or two where I scratched my head. Kelly was on a much different level. And to your point, I think Nick does give players a lot of freedom early on. He did that with Paul Reed last year, and I think it kind of backfired on him a little bit. Now, Andre he's been in the league much longer. He's more of a vet. I have far less concerns over that. But, still, just giving some players a blanket green light, mixed results.
Well, I mean, you talked about the one close to the 3-point line, and I was just talking about the one 9 feet away from the basket where that's a normal Embiid pull-up jumper or another counter move. And, you're right. Know your personnel. Can't give that guy the ball out there. And for the most part, when he did get the ball out there, he made sure he looked for someone else to dribble handoff, set that screen, and get closer to the basket.
Even when he was spotting up on, and I mentioned this to Derek during the game, there was a play where Caleb Martin was near the rim and he threw a kick out, skip pass to Andre Drummond. And Andre Drummond very quickly made a swing pass to the corner. And so, I'm not trying to pile on him. I think he was not all that good, but I think you still see, okay, he wants to be in a role. He's trying to do the things that the coaching staff has asked from him. And I think that on the short rolls and things like that, some of it was they were trying to screen real high for Tyrese, and that's just a natural product of that, right? If you're going to screen close to half court for Maxey, they're going to trap him and say, hey, Andre Drummond, catch the ball at the 3-point line. So he will have to figure that out to some extent. And I think over time they will, and they'll develop counters, and it'll look better than it did at times tonight.
Here's what we do know he can do also. He can still rebound that basketball.
Yes, he can.
Got 11 boards tonight, 2 offensive, 9 on the defensive glass. Had 3 block shots also. So that's a nice thing to see from him as well. We do have another super chat from Ernest Peterson, our good friend Ernest Peterson here, checking in with the super chat on this Monday night. And Ern says, unrelated to the injury, did you see McCain foul Trey twice and then ask him about it? To Trey's credit, he took the time to show him why it was a foul. I did see it.
I didn't 3 fouls in 45 seconds or whatever it was. I can tell you that.
And Dominique Wilkins had mentioned it. That he was like, yeah, you fouled him. So 3 fouls. It wasn't great, 3,003 minutes. But yes, did see him talking to Trae Young, and a veteran. Oftentimes you'll see that a lot. Veterans will talk to players, even in the regular season, of, hey, this is what you did, this is what you shouldn't do. And it was good of Trae Young to extend some of that knowledge of why not. But guess what? Trae Young fouls a lot too. But it was more on the offensive end on what Trae Young did to help create that foul. So good on Trae Young as the veteran to help out the young guy.
Well, look, if there's ever anyone to, explain a foul, it's the absolute master at drawing them in Trae. A lot of times in ways that a lot of people, especially people who enjoy watching aesthetically pleasing basketball, don't enjoy, but he can certainly draw a foul.
One of the most confounding things with Trae are all the conflicting takes on just him as a player in person, right? I think most fan bases hate him, right? Because he's not only a very good player, but he loves to rub it in and talk trash and whatever. Most of the players around the league love him for various reasons, on and off the floor. it's not always clear that his teammates love him, because the DeJounte Murray, John Collins, a couple examples of guys who bristle at it. So he's very hard to get a read on in that way. Like, normally it's a little bit easier. Like, you're either a guy that players like or you're a guy that players don't like. But I give him credit. He has found that sweet spot right in the middle where he pisses off as many people as he.
He's got the new look going too with the beard, man. That's getting used to the beard from Trae.
It is a little weird after, whatever he was.
Normally goatee.
He was just goatee?
Just goatee. That's it.
For some reason, I was like, did he just have a mustache? And now I'm like, I guess it was a little scraggly goatee.
Yeah, now it was a goatee. Beard. He's got the beard going on.
He went to Romania for the beard plugs.
Or Turkey.
Or maybe he went to glad hair restoration.
I don't know. Man.
Oh, free promo.
There you go. Trae, good work on you, man. Good work on you. All right, let's get to one of the good things from tonight, and maybe it helps him out with the rotation. Our player of the game. Let's go to our player of the game here tonight.
Look at that.
And that is one K.J. Martin Jr. there. 5 for 9, 5 for 6 from the floor with 11 points. I was
going to say, if he's 5 for 9, he definitely didn't shoot 83%. So we got to figure that out.
3 boards, 2 assists, and 20-plus minutes of work. And he was active. He was really active, getting his hands in there, finishing a lob that they also had an opportunity for. He played some good basketball tonight. And if there's any indication of us talking about Ricky Council and the battle between those two and who gets the most minutes, even pregame, Nick Nurse talked about how he felt KJ Martin has played well in training camp and through preseason. And tonight, Kyle, he was solid for the work that you're asking of him.
Yes, I used the phrase solid but unspectacular for his preseason in my recap tonight. I think tonight was the first night that was like, that was an objectively good game for him. And I do think it showed. We really hammered Ricky on Saturday post-game for playing out of control, not understanding his role, like stepping outside of himself at times. I think this game showed the difference to me and to probably what the coaching staff sees between KJ Martin and Ricky Council right now. And that's that KJ can have these sort of just very controlled role player games, mix it up, use your athleticism, but there was never really like a what the hell are you doing type of moment, right? It was, and frankly, on defense, I thought he had some great help defense rotations at times. In fact, the play of the game for me was Kyle Lowry getting a block, which Kyle Lowry getting a block in an NBA game in 2024 is just insane. But the reason he's able to get it was because KJ made a good help side rotation, stepped in, Kyle Lowry comes from behind. And so there are just more of those plays that he's stacked up during the preseason. And he leveraged his athleticism, which has always been the thing, right? He's a nuclear athlete. We know what the genes are. His dad was a crazy athlete, but you don't often see it impact the game. It's just a thing he has that every once in a while it's like, oh, that was a cool dunk. And then he gave up 10 points on the other end of the floor and missed 2 threes, and that was kind of that. But I thought he was a consistently helpful player tonight. And so that was a nice thing in the midst of a game where there were a lot of like, or less than performances.
Was he the one who had that assist to Lowry?
On the cut, yeah. The quick connective
Paul George
pass.
had a shot fake, found him down at the dunker spot area, and then he found Lowry. So that was a nice pass. He had a solid all-around game.
And I'll trail it with the second quarter play where he had the 2 offensive rebounds off of the 3-point looks that the Sixers had, one from Maxey, and I cannot remember who the other one was. It was a result of his first offensive rebound. They missed. He got the next one, and then Oubre did finish a nice little about a 12-foot jumper there, right there in the paint because of the work that KJ Martin did. So good work all around by him tonight, and he's being rewarded with those minutes ahead of some of those others simply because of that in this time. All right, we also wanted to ask you guys about Yabusele, first big off the bench.
Well, he was, I mean, if we were just going by pure box score, and we probably could have made the argument that he was the player of the game. Double-double, 14 and 11. I think he had 3 assists as well. That was the main difference was he had competent personnel around him, and he's not having to be superhero on the back end all the time. And so I think everything we argued about over the weekend where it's like, well, is it all him or is it just he needs the other guys out there? I think we're seeing if you can put a couple switchable wings next to him and even having Lowry out there, where certainly he's not a lockdown defender at this stage of his career, but a guy who's almost always going to be in the right spots. And on top of that, offensively, those two already have a pretty good understanding. They ran through on one possession like 2 or 3 dribble handoffs in a row, and Lowry's been very good at finding him on those duck-ins or the switches from other teams where they try to get out to Lowry, and then it's like, okay, Yabusele's got like Trae Young or whoever on him. That is not a favorable matchup for Atlanta, certainly. So good Yabusele game tonight. Great bounce back after a tough one the other night.
Yeah, and I thought a key was, very early on, he got the ball swung to him and it was wide open. Like he probably had 8 feet of space, and he just swung the ball around. Didn't even look at the rim.
And we were like, oh, brother.
And then that same possession, he hits a corner 3.
Yes.
So I give him a lot of credit for the fact that he, as sirens go off in the background, very excited about that Yabusele game. I give him a lot of credit for the fact that, he passed open, had a sort of record scratch open 3, and then moments later had the confidence to take it. I do wonder if he's way more comfortable from the corners than he is above the break.
Yep.
I wonder if it's a little bit like a Pascal Siakam situation earlier on in his career when he just could not shoot above the break. And that would make sense because obviously the corners are shorter, a little closer to what he is used to, and he has to get used to that distance. But being able to make that above the break 3, especially if they're going to put him out there, because like you said, when you were talking about Drummond at the top of the key, he was up there next to him for a lot of the game. If you're going to have your big men up there, it really helps if they're able to space the floor. But he had a really good game on the glass, was much better defensively, and we were pretty harsh on him after the past game. Moved the ball around well. It was a good Yabusele game for sure.
Very good game. And if he played 21 minutes tonight. He got up 4 threes. That's completely reasonable amount of threes
Volume's
for a
fine.
guy in that situation.
Looks to be the clear third center on this roster right now, ahead of a Dembona who didn't get into the fourth quarter. Derek, what did you make of the opportunity to finally see him at the 4 next to Drummond since you brought that up?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a ton of time, and I do worry about the space. Like I said, especially the fact that I love the fact that he seems comfortable taking the corner threes. I do want to see him grow that and extend that out to above the break. I wouldn't say that there was a whole lot that was notable during those minutes, just the fact that they did get that ball movement when they were at the top there, because it's going to be interesting to see how that works offensively. Obviously, on the glass, it can be real strong.
Mm-hmm.
I think we just haven't seen enough of it yet.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, the counterpoint there is most of his overseas career has been as a 4 next to bigger guys. So it's really, that's where the shot matters, right? If he doesn't shoot well, but he's only playing small ball 5, it matters, but it's not as consequential because he will presumably have better shooters around him. If he doesn't shoot as a 4, then it's like, well, you're compromising Joel Embiid's space, or you're playing next to Andre Drummond, and that's like a 5-alarm fire situation.
And guess what? KJ Martin will get those 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And he's a little more athletic and do some more things, cut along the baseline, be a little more active there, for some drop-offs from those other teammates to get some easier buckets there and compete defensively, rebounding as well. All right, let's get to our next super chat from Ernest Peterson. Jumping in again. KJ shoots 100% on his dunks off of those dribble handoffs. So, hey, finish the dunks, man. You're athletic. Finish them.
I mean, that's the thing with him, right? Is because he's not big man sized, you don't think of him as like, oh, he's a roll man or he's a guy coming out of a dribble handoff going to the rim. But that is his strength. Like in that way, he's just like his dad, right? Where his dad he sets a screen for whether it's Chauncey Billups, Carmelo, whoever it might be. He's going to the rim and he's throwing one down on you. Or I guess earlier in his career, Jason Kidd or Richard Jefferson or one of those guys.
Yeah, those lobs and all that stuff was great. All right, folks, we want to make sure that we let you know, become a diehard member. Go check out allphly.com and become a diehard member. You get the PHLY Lounge as the Discord and talk a lot of stuff in there.
There were some arguments going down today, boy, and I was at the center of them. So
some of those arguments, you can also just talk everybody through the scares of potential injuries that happen in game, or you could talk about some of the positive stuff like Yabusele, KJ Martin, and Kyle Lowry as well. Become a diehard member, sign up. You can read the stories post game of Kyle and Derek when they put things up following the games. There's one up there right now as Kyle wrote, his instant observations from the game, the good, the bad, the ugly. There was some of that stuff, but they also got the win. So go sign up, allphly.com. Derek will have some things there too. The Eagles, Flyers, and Phillies as well. All right. We want to thank our presenting sponsors, Bet365 and Rothman Orthopedics, and get to our end of the night
roll call.
There we have it.
Got plenty of friends in here with us tonight. Thank you guys for hanging out with us for a preseason game at 11 o'clock on Monday in October when the real games begin. I know we're all excited for that. So thank you to Jess.
What up, Jess?
To Money Mar. To our guy Al, the 2-minute warning.
What up, Al?
To Jay. To the king of Comcast, Eugene Ross. Bootzilla.
Boots.
In the building. We got Jay of the Jungle. We got Remo K. We got Aaron. We got my girl Winona.
Hey, Nona.
We got Mark Cunningham. What is up to Mark?
What up, Mark?
We got William. Is that Bucher or Butcher? I'm going to call you Billy Butcher, like the character from The Boys, because that's funnier in my head to think of you that way, that Billy Butcher is watching our show. We got Tiwa Bello. Hello to you, and thank you for coming through. We got Marty Bones. Ernest Peterson was, I think he had a couple of super chats tonight, right?
Yeah.
Am I remembering that correctly, Bree? Yeah.
What up, Ern?
2 super chats from Ernest Peterson, a super chat from Bernard McCoy, a super chat from our pal Corey, who I don't think we've seen in a little bit. So thank you, Corey, for checking in. We have Benjamin without the N, so that's Benjamai. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight.
What up, Ben?
There are a lot of names in here, fellas and ladies. I'm just going to say.
I saw swinging in there.
X-Man is in here. The helicopter propeller is in here.
The helicopter propeller?
You know what the full name on that is. We have our girl Valos.
Hey, Val. Val's tired. She said she's ready to go to sleep.
We have Emmanuel in the building. Ronald L. Bobby B.
Bobby B, baby.
We got all kinds of people hanging out with us.
That's
We're
Bernie
thankful
Mac,
for
man.
each and every.
Bobby B from Transformers. Bobby B,
They used to call it Jawbone. On that note, everybody hit thumbs up on this. Everybody hit the thumbs up on this button to thank super producer Bree, who's with us every single show, no matter what, even when we're making Bernie Mac Jawbone jokes at 11 o'clock at night.
Devon's dying.
Hit the subscribe button.
You killed him.
Hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. And also thank you, by the way, to our friend Darkness on the way out.
Man.
Goodbye, everybody. We will be back at 3 p.m. tomorrow. We'll catch you then.
We all silly like the mayor.